I have to admit to you, it's a bit embarrassing how much my imagination for the tabernacle and priestly system have been shaped by Indiana Jones. Near the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, just before everyone's faces melt and Dr. Rene Belloc's head explodes in flames, Belloc dresses himself in what Hollywood's costume department must have imagined the high priest would wear. Now, for years, I missed an important detail. That across Belloc's chest is a breastpiece covered with 12 precious stones, arranged in 4 rows of 3. Looking back now, I notice it immediately. It wasn't a random piece of ancient jewelry. It was based on God's command. In Exodus 28, God tells Moses, fashion a breastpiece for making decisions, the work of skilled hands. Verse 21, there are to be 12 stones, one for each of the names of the sons of Israel, each engraved like a seal with the name of one of the 12 tribes. The high priest carried the names of God's people over his heart whenever he entered into God's presence. At least that's what Exodus tells us. Whenever Aaron enters the holy place, he will bear the names of the sons of Israel over his heart. Now let's go back to John's vision of the New Jerusalem in Revelation 21. Verse 19, John says, the foundations of the city walls were decorated with every kind of precious stone. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth ruby, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th turquoise, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. Again, we find 12 precious stones connected to the people of God. This isn't the first time that John draws our attention to the number 12. Earlier, John told us that the gates of the city had the names of the 12 tribes of Israel written on them, and the foundations had the names of the 12 apostles. Together, they symbolize the complete people of God. Everyone who belongs to him through the work of the Lamb. Which helps us to understand why John describes the foundations using the imagery of precious stones. Because the stones on the priest's breastpiece weren't simply decorative. They represented the people of God. Now, every time Aaron entered the holy place, he carried these names over his heart into God's presence. In Revelation 21, something's changed. There's no longer a priest carrying God's people into God's presence. God's presence has now come to dwell with his people. That's how our chapter began. Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. The picture that began with a priest carrying the names of God's people into the holy place ends with God's people living forever in the presence of their God and King. The beauty of the New Jerusalem isn't primarily about streets of gold or of precious stones. It's what those things represent. God treasures his people. That's an incredible thought, as most of us don't always see ourselves that way. We're far more aware of our flaws and failures. We see all the places where God still needs to work. Revelation gives us a glimpse of where God's work is heading. One day, God's work in us will be complete. We'll no longer need someone to carry us into God's presence. We'll be home. May that promise encourage us to greater and greater faithfulness as we follow him this week.